Now that we have installed Anaconda, we can start writing Python codes. So this is the Anaconda navigator. Again, you can find it usually in your start menu of Windows. To write Python codes, a convenient way is to use Jupyter Notebook. Let's find this item, Jupyter Notebook, in the list of icons of the navigator interface. Let me click on Launch, and we can open Jupyter Notebook using your preferred browser. Now we have opened the Jupyter Notebook. It lists all the folders and files under the user's home directory. What we can do is to create a working directory for ourselves. Choose the location, and then you can create a folder. Let's call it 0712. Enter the directory we just created. Now we can start to create a notebook to write Python codes. Choose the kernel, which is Python 3 by default. And we can start writing codes. For example, we can type in some commands, 1+2, click on the play icon. This will run the code. Another example can do 2 times 16. We get 32, which is correct. Now we haven't named the file we just created, so we can click on the name of the file, and it allows you to change the name. So let's name this file to test. Click on rename. Now you will have a file called test in your working directory. By the way, you can check your working directory by typing the command pwd in a cell, and then click on the play icon. You will see the exact location of your working directory. If you want to go back to the working directory and see all the files and folders there, you can go back to the previous Jupyter Notebook window. Let's refresh that page. And you want to see that the file we just created is now renamed to test.ipynotebook. You can also try to save the notebook in a different name. Let's say first notebook and save. And go back to the working directory, refresh it. You will see that now there are two files, because we saved the previous file test.ipynb in a different name. You can also download the notebook. Let's just go to File, click on Download, and then the notebook will be downloaded in the default download folder on your computer. A nice thing about Jupyter Notebook is that it not only allows you to write Python codes, execute Python commands, it will also allow you to write something we call markdown. Markdown basically allows you to display descriptive text in a very nice format. For example, let's go to the first cell of this notebook, and then look at all those little icons to the right. If I click on this icon, which says insert a cell above, we'll be able to insert a cell above the cell we just selected. Similarly, you can also use one of those icons to insert a cell below the current cell or the last icon in order to delete the cell you have selected. Okay, now let's click on the new cell. And then just below the main menu, you can see there is an item called code. We can toggle the item in this part and then change it to markdown. Now what you will be writing will no longer be Python codes. Instead, we can do something like this. You can write any descriptive text with somehow a very nice format. For example, if we use the pound sign space followed by some text. And then again, click on the play icon. As we can see, what it shows us is something like the title of a section, something like a heading. Okay? And we'll be able to have subheadings. Start a new line in the same cell, and then this time I will use 2 pound signs, space, and then include some text. Again, choose the play icon. As we can see, this is again something like a heading, but a lower level heading. Right? The font size is a bit smaller. Now, if I don't include any pound signs and just start to type any text, then we'll have something like normal text. We can also use different formats to do things like highlighting or put some underscores for some parts of the description, or create a list or an enumeration. So let's try to see another example. For example, for this sentence I just wrote, let's try to put a pair of asterisks around this last word, calculations, and see what happens. As we can see, the word calculations becomes italic. We can put 2 asterisks to begin and close this word. And what's happening is that we'll have boldface font. Or we can do a tag, which is called underscore. I will do angle U, close it. And then also angle, this time I want to do a slash, and then U and close it. Now we have some underscores. Right? We can also create a list of bullets, just like what we can do in PowerPoint. To do that, let's start a new line. I will type in an asterisk space followed by something, let's say item 1, right? And then item 2, and item 3. We can also create sub-items for every bullet point. For example, under item 3, I can include item 3.1 and item 3.2. And to do that, we do the same thing. Let's say item 3.1. But this time, we'll go back to the beginning of the line and use the tab key to indent this line just slightly. And then hit the enter key. I go to the next line, I can do item 3.2. Now, if you have enough sub-items for item 3, you can go back to the beginning of line, asterisk, space, item 4. And let's see how this can look like. Okay. I think things work out nicely. All right, so this is how to use Jupyter Notebook. And there's more to find out along the way when we start to write Python codes throughout the course. Now, when you exit, you may want to click on Close and Shut Down Notebook, because if you simply close the tab, the Jupyter Notebook will still be running in the backend, which consumes CPU and memory resources of your computer. So let's go back to the working directory and refresh it. Okay, now we can see that for the first file, we made sure to close and shut down the kernel for this notebook. We didn't do that for the second notebook, and that's why we see a little green dot before the name of the file. I mean, the tab is still open, but we can safely close it and then refresh it again. The green dot is still there, meaning that it's still consuming your memory and perhaps also CPU resources, right? If you already closed the tab, I would recommend you to select the checkbox in front of the running file, right? And then what we can do is to right-click and then select Shut Down Kernel. And this completely shuts down the file. Now we have talked about Jupyter Notebook. Something very similar, but a bit more advanced is the Jupyter Lab. So let's try to open Jupyter Lab. Again, from Anaconda Navigator, we can click on Launch and wait patiently. Things are pretty much very similar, but Jupyter Lab has richer features compared with Jupyter Notebook. We can see several panels within this tab of Jupyter Lab. To the left, this is the working directory. You can change your working directory by selecting the folders in the directory. For example, documents, and then 0712, and then this change the working directory to the folder 0712 we just created previously. And then there's something called the launcher in the middle part of the tab. And we can click on Python 3 to create a new notebook. And we can start writing codes. And we can always close the panel to the right in order to save some space for writing codes. I would say that it's usually more convenient to use Jupyter Lab because of the nice layout and nice features provided by this more advanced tool. But it's not a bad idea to start with something simple. So if you're comfortable with Jupyter Lab, you can use it. If you prefer something simple, we can focus on Jupyter Notebook.